Hey, I'm Hunt, and this is Hunt on LSU, your channel for LSU Fighting Tiger football talk. Enjoy the video. We want you to leave a comment below, hit that like button, and subscribe right below the video. Enjoy. We start with a disaster in the swamp. LSU loses to Florida 27-16, and there are so many directions to go. And I guess one of the challenges of this job is to make sure that you're on point and discussing the things that need to be discussed, leading with the most important topics. And I honestly don't know where to start, other than the fact that we're going to start with an opening drive.
It's time for Hunt's Opening Drive, presented by Genesis of Baton Rouge.
It was offense. It was defense. It was coaching. It was communication. It was special teams. Everything was bad for LSU on Saturday night in the swamp. And I hand up, picked LSU to win this game comfortably. And I did so because I still believed in some of LSU's identity as a team. And I thought Florida was terrible. And statistically speaking, what they put on film and on the field this year, what they've done, Billy Napier's entire tenure in Gainesville, has been pathetic. You're talking about a defense that ranks between 10th and 16th in just about every category you can find in the Southeastern Conference. Rushing defense, passing defense, sacks, tackles for loss, total defense. Like, they're just awful defensively. LSU managed to put one touchdown on the board. This team offensively, Florida, without its best playmaker on the outside, its starting running back, Martin Charles Johnson, had 2 carries. DJ Lagway played quarterback and couldn't run. He never once ran beyond the line of scrimmage. He was playing with one leg. You let him score 27 points. I realize there are different iterations of this Florida team. There's a Graham Mertz iteration. There's a dual quarterback with Mertz and Lagway. There's just Lagway. Then you've got Aiden Warner who played. And so every single game can't be directly compared to LSU. But we have seen Texas A&M toy with this Florida team. We saw Texas toy with this Florida team. We saw Miami toy with this Florida team. It's not good. And LSU overwhelmed Florida from a time of possession and offensive snap standpoint and still lost the game by 11 points. That is a nightmare. And that's what we saw from LSU. It was a complete inability from LSU's perspective to create any big plays. Florida, while they never had the ball, was able to create chunk plays. They had the deep pass for a 23-yard touchdown to Elijah Badger for their first score. They had a 55-yard touchdown run to put the game on ice. And then they also had a big play to Badger down to the 1-yard line to set up a 1-yard touchdown. LSU, though they had the ball for 93 snaps, only created one big play of over 25 yards. It was just a consistent dink and dunk here and there. They were good on third down, kept the ball, but they couldn't put it in the end zone when they needed to. And that's been a problem now for 10 quarters. 4 against Florida, 4 against Bama, 2 against A&M. Since halftime of the A&M game, LSU has had 27 drives. They have scored touchdowns on 3 of 27 drives. One of those was in the rain, down 42-6 with under a minute to go against Alabama. I'm not going to give you a ton of credit for that one. So honestly, you've basically scored a touchdown on 2 of 26 drives. That's not a good offense. That's not an efficient offense. That's an offense that can't do what it's out there to do, which is put the ball in the end zone. They got whipped up front for a lot of the game in the pass protection game. Hurts to not have Garrett Dellinger out there. Paul Mabenga and DJ Chester had their issues, certainly. And you give up 7 sacks entering the game. Do you know how many sacks LSU had given up on the season? 6. They gave up 7 in 4 quarters to a team that, oh, by the way, was 10th in the league in sacks coming in. It's not like you were facing some elite front. You weren't.
And it was really just the second half. I think they only gave up 1 sack in the first half.
But once Florida knew LSU had to throw it, they came after Garrett Nussmeier. And guess what? I think there's a correlation here between the fact that Garrett Nussmeier did not turn the ball over and the fact that he took 7 sacks. There's a balance there where, yeah, you weren't getting sacked at all. Previously, the ball was always coming out, but was it being put in harm's way? Now the ball's not being put in harm's way. That's a good thing, but you're giving up a lot of sacks. I will give LSU credit for this. They did run the ball, and I thought LSU would run the ball in this game. I told you, LSU runs the ball pretty well against mediocre defenses, and Florida very much is a mediocre defense, and LSU committed to the run. They ran it 44 times in this game. If you just count the tailbacks, they ran it 34 times, and those guys were effective. Caden Durham and Josh Williams combined had 33 carries for 160 yards. That is really productive, and it wasn't skewed at all by big plays. I already told you they weren't creating big plays. Durham's longest run was 16. Williams' longest run was 22. LSU was consistently getting a push and moving the ball, and that's why they dominated the time of possession more than 40 minutes. But you couldn't get it in the end zone when you needed to. You'd either get a holding penalty and knock yourself out of range, put yourself in the 2nd and 20. You drop the touchdown pass. 2 of them hit your hands. It's everywhere that's an issue for this LSU team right now. And it really is shocking to me to go where we have gone in the last 4 weeks. I know you've heard this refrain a million times, but it bears repeating. At halftime of that A&M game, this looked like a real contender. And right now, you're trying to find SEC teams you think they could beat. That's how quickly this thing has flipped in 3.5 weeks. The defense in this game, statistically speaking, doesn't look atrocious. 27 points allowed is not atrocious. DJ Lagway was 13 of 26 for 226 yards and 1 touchdown. That's not earth-shattering. Florida running the ball had 113 yards rushing, and 55 of them came on 1 play. The other 16 carries went for about 65 yards. Not that awful. But you have to realize that they weren't ever on the field. Florida wasn't running any plays. So when you consider that in 43 snaps, Florida was able to put up 335 yards, that they were able to put up 27 points, and then you consider that they didn't have their top playmaker in Eugene Wilson and their quarterback had 1 leg, all of a sudden the statistics don't mean as much. And then you look at this and you just go, well, it wasn't very good. You didn't do a good job of covering in man-to-man. You allowed another explosive run. You didn't sack the quarterback, who was on 1 leg. And you couldn't force a young player into some decision mistakes. It wasn't a good defensive day. It was a bad defensive day. It was a bad offensive day. It's a bad coaching day. It's a bad day for the program. Because at this point in year 3 under Brian Kelly, you would have thought LSU would be beyond this. This is not Florida finding something in their program, although I will give their fans and their team a lot of credit for showing up, one, with the fans, and to the team for playing really, really hard, because they don't have much to play for, but they're bought in. And they're not very good, but they played hard, and they took it to LSU, who, by the way, not very good right now. And so there's a lot of soul searching that has to go on with this LSU program right now. And it's difficult to see long-term in this era, not just at LSU, just because there are so many possibilities that can happen in terms of roster management from now until next Labor Day. Brian Kelly's first job here is Vanderbilt and Oklahoma. And then the next job on the calendar is making sure that signing class gets inked. And then you've got to go to the transfer portal and start supplementing some things. And Brian Kelly talked about the transfer portal today and said, look, it's not a place we want to build our program, but we certainly need to supplement it and explore it. And they will, and you're going to need to. Because this season's already got 4 losses hung on it, and we'll see what happens in the next 2 weeks. That is failing to accomplish any of the goals you set out to accomplish in August. And this last 3 weeks has been a meltdown on both sides of the football. The team that was flying around against Ole Miss, the team that was making clutch plays against Ole Miss in South Carolina, the team that was really imposing its will on Texas A&M. That's a distant memory. Now you've got 10 quarters of really, really subpar football that LSU has put out there. And we'll see what the next 8 have in store before you move into basically another offseason. I'm not really going to count the bowl as something that you can add to. It's a tough, tough spot that LSU is in at this point. And Saturday was a gravely disappointing performance in the Swamp. 27-16 was the final. Hey, thanks for watching Hunt on LSU. Before you get out of here, do us a couple of favors. Hit that like button, leave your comments below, and subscribe to the channel for all your Fighting Tiger football talk. See you next time.